to everybody at Beyond Words podcast. I am Manmeet. I'm from India and I have Oksana with me.
Hello, and I'm from Germany. So this is our 6th episode, and today we're gonna talk about why symbols matter, so the visible signs of invisible realities. And we have Natalia with us today. Natalia is a university professor and very concerned with symbolism.
Hi, and I'm speaking now from Moscow, and I do hope that today we will be able to discuss the issues I'm really interested in. And if you just permit me, I'll say a few words why I decided to join you, because you have absolutely naked and clean walls behind yourselves without any symbols of your culture or your background. And I think it is very important to provide information via symbols you have nearby. So I have a bookcase full of books as a university professor, and my daughter's handcraft on the wall as a devoted mother. So I do hope that all these messages can be read and understood just because they have a symbolic meaning, which means that they mean something that is not directly associated with the things we see, but still we all have some background in common when we do understand that book is a symbol of knowledge and teaching, and handcraft is a symbol of somebody's love and devotion, especially when this handcraft thing is given to you as a symbol of something. So what I would really like to speak today about is how important it is to investigate the world you're surrounded and to investigate the symbols, to be very careful and attentive to the world that is really invisible, but still you have access to information via the symbolic meanings and via the people who can explain some meanings to you. Any associations with the symbol I have now on my screen with the symbol of origami crane?
What I see is a sign of peace.
Yes, and Oksana?
I have a particular song now in mind from a war, Second World War, where cranes are used. I directly jump to this. So like cranes as the symbol of death soldiers.
I suppose this is one of the examples when different upbringings and different mentalities provide us with a kind of different meanings. However, I suppose you both are absolutely right, because the white color is usually, and the sky is usually a symbol of peace. However, I suppose you do remember that usually a pigeon is a symbol of peace, yeah, so international symbol of peace.
Yeah.
And with regard to the understanding these cranes as the souls of the defeated soldiers is also correct. I suppose in some cultures it really has such a meaning. With regard to the origami crane, there is a very sad story. However, it is very useful, I suppose, to know that the crane, origami crane, is a symbol of hope and love, because it is a story of a girl who believed that if she made 1,000 cranes, she would survive and she would cope with the disease. That is why internationally now we think that the symbol of 1,000 cranes is a symbol of hope and love and devotion to people who are in need of help and support. However, I suppose that except understanding that we all have the right to different understanding of symbols, we still need to investigate what is the meaning behind each symbol. And in order not to hurt people who created these symbols and who tried to provide an access to some kind of intimate personal feeling. Do you remember how often you felt very hurt when you gave somebody something as a symbol of love and friendship, and this symbol was a kind of mistreated as you thought? And you had a feeling of being a little bit hurt when you thought that it was a symbol of your love, devotion, and friendship, and it just was a kind of ignored, for example, or not very carefully treated or something like this. That is why we need to be very careful when we deal with something used as a symbol. On the other hand, we still live in a very multicultural world. That is why I'm usually very careful with the symbols used by other cultures. I try to avoid resorting to the symbols used.
So, when we are talking about culture and symbols, I am like intrigued to understand when it comes to swastika in India, it is used as a very divine symbol and is used to start, when we are starting anything new and during ceremonies, religious ceremonies as well, they draw this symbol. It's a sign of prosperity and it's divine and good luck. But the same symbol, it's a little bit a different, designed in a different way, a little bit different. And when we see the scenario of World War II, the Nazis were using it, and the scenario was completely different there. Can you explain a little bit?
Yeah, again, I suppose that we call such swastika signs solar signs. Usually, they are associated with the sun, and of course, they are very, very ancient symbols because sun as well as moon were very important in the life of ancient people. And again, when they used all these signs, they tried to share responsibility for the decisions, for the consequences with some superpowers. And the only superpowers they knew were the solar, the moon, the stars. So the wind and everything that was superior to a human being in power, opportunities, and abilities. And I suppose that all these solar signs and swastika have very long story, and we need to be very careful with the meanings because you see, just with the example of the Nazi that sometimes symbols can be used as a symbol of community sharing certain values that can be far from the symbol per se, far from the symbol and the original meaning, conventional, as we say, meaning of the symbol. And then again, without understanding, without knowing the precise meaning of the symbol, there is no need, or maybe we need to be very careful when we join or share anybody's values without understanding what is the meaning behind the symbol they use to demonstrate the unity, to demonstrate a kind of community, because it might happen that you don't share the values they try to use behind the symbol.
I was wondering, I mean, we are surrounded with symbols all the time. And there are symbols that we know and symbols that we don't know. So, like, could we argue that we feel more comfortable being surrounded with symbols that we know, that are familiar to us?
Yes, sure. And this is, I suppose, one of the references to your podcast concerning comfort zone. You can feel yourself comfortable only when you are surrounded by things and ideas you're actually aware of. Imagine that you are surrounded by things that are not by absolutely new things, the things that you haven't accustomed to. I suppose starting from the very beginning, you will have a kind of physical problems. You will come across something that is not in the place you expect, and you will just feel yourself very uncertain, moving, and feeling yourself like an elephant in a pottery shop. And every time when we speak about something that has unassociated meaning, for example, if you see a mug, it doesn't mean that it is a mug. It can be a symbol of a very calm Sunday morning when you can allow yourself quite a long tea party, when you can drink this mug of tea, because usually during the week you have to just take a very small part of tea because you don't have time to relax and so on and so forth. The thing is that in order to feel self-assured, you need something you're aware of. Otherwise, you leave this zone of comfort when everything is clear and understandable.
When I started my career and I was working with a multinational. I'll not name the company, but what they used to do is I started as somebody who was involved day in day out with a lot of clients and customers. they asked me to remove everything which symbolizes, like a thread which symbolizes a culture and a religion, or like a bangle which recognizes my culture. They say no. So we don't want the customers to be biased against you, to have any kind of bias and identify. So they completely say no to any kind of symbols that are like to a culture or to a society.
I suppose that it is another very important point we are
Yeah.
going to face in the nearest future, because it's not fair to deprive people of such signs sometimes.
Yeah.
And actually, um, this a kind of zero tolerance to symbolic things
Yes.
associating us with certain faith or belief or something. I
Yeah.
suppose it's a kind of consequence of some very dangerous and extreme events in the past, when in fact symbols were held responsible for the ideas transmission. It is not symbols, it is people behind this,
Yeah.
all these tragic consequences. But still, maybe for a while we will have to be very, very tolerant to such a requirement as not to use
Yeah.
anything that can be treated as having symbolic meaning. It is quite understandable that a lot of people are very worried nowadays about the meanings we have behind all this symbolic stuff. But again, I suppose it is not fair if we have the multicultural worlds. Why not to get accustomed to being
Yeah.
different, to having different cultures, different ideas? Maybe it's better to teach younger people how to be independent in judgments, how to be educated, how to be critical about the concepts, rather than just depriving them of the opportunity to see that people are
Yes.
different.
Yeah. When we see a particular symbol, like even if it is like a religious symbol or like a country symbol or nothing else, but if you're walking on a street and we see that, like octagon figure in red and saying stop, we all stop. It unites us in a way, but also different symbols divide us in a certain way as well. Yeah, so there's a very thin line.
Yeah, I suppose that all this information flooding we are now in deprives us of the opportunity to think what causes hostility. Are these symbols or the people behind the symbols? Are the symbols deprive us of the feeling of unity, or are these just people and what they are doing that deprives us of the feeling of unity still? I suppose that we can share with Oksana that we are cousins, and we are expected to have some symbols in common, but I can hardly think about such a symbol. Is there anything that we can say, for example, can be used as a symbol in our family? Have some specific dishes that might be quite typical for a family. Handmade
Maybe they're
noodles.
like family recipes.
I mean, I actually have one that I can show you right now. This is this one. Do you recognize
Yeah,
it?
exactly. Yes. So, yeah, you're right. Yeah, they're absolutely typical. If you show it to all the members of our extended family, we will all immediately recognize it. Yes, we call it in
Wow.
Russian plushka.
What do you call it?
Plushka.
Okay.
Plushka.
Oh, this is
Yeah.
amazing. Like, wow,
Yeah,
like symbols are like so ingrained, not only like country or specific communities, but also like families. This is
of
amazing.
course. Any
Yeah.
the thing is that any unit of people
Yeah.
can have a symbol, can have
Yeah.
something.
Even two people, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, especially
Mm.
two people. All this hot
Mm.
stuff is just so.
Yes.
Wedding rings, they are the
Yes.
symbol of
Yeah.
wedlock.
Yeah.
So that
Yes.
although they are wedding rings, but they are associated with the chains of the wedding. Do you remember that
Mm.
in English it is
Mm.
wedlock, which means not freedom from each other. It means almost
Yeah.
slavery, I would
Yeah.
say. But then again, wedding rings. I suppose we can give a lot of examples of
Like
such symbolic
flowers?
meaning.
What about flowers? Flowers also have so much of meaning. Like, if I see like during weddings as well, I've seen a lot of people like their country has a specific flower. They'll use that kind of a flower, or like in a very symbolic manner. I guess flowers are also used a lot.
Yes, exactly. And flowers. can be of symbolic meaning. So if you say retro, he gave me a red rose, it means that he's in love with me. But if he gave you a yellow tulip here in Russia, it would mean that he's going to separate with you. And all this stuff is very important here. So, and I suppose that it's very interesting how our mind is trying to get rid of responsibility, just reading these symbolic meanings, because this is the concept of how we do not want to be absolutely responsible for what we are doing, what we are thinking, and so on.
So communicating without words by using a symbol. So for like also with flowers, what comes to my mind is like, of course, a combination of flowers, but then also the counting, how many and so on, that could have very different meanings. So symbols also used to demonstrate power hierarchies. So if I think back to my last work, so for police, you have like different star count, of course, like how many stars. Then you have like a blue one with like, so to speak, if you have silver stars, then you're higher rank, and you have gold stars and so on. And it's also depending on how many. So it could also use as a hierarchy demonstration, I guess. And what you said, maybe like without having to explain, well, this is now a police officer of such and such rank, people from the organization directly know by just seeing the badges here and count the stars.
And again, you need to understand that in this case, these are the signs they understand themselves. It means like communicate itself can understand the hierarchy. So it is for their hierarchical structure. They need to know, this unit needs to know how to address each other depending on the achievements or accomplishments. But for me, actually, it doesn't matter. So I just see that this is high rank officer and it's enough for me. So nothing special. Again, this is a kind of not differentiation. This is a kind of unifying and differentiating. And then when only peers or people of the same values of the same environment can understand. So it is not for strangers to understand what
can we argue that smileys are symbols of emotion?
Of course, they're symbols. And again, you understand the smile, you understand the frowning face, and so emojis. Yeah, they are symbols. But again, they are too much uniform. And the more we use them, I suppose, the less meaning they have. So just try to, in all your messages, use 3 smiles at the end of your message. I suppose very soon you will find out that people are less attentive to what you're writing because you have mitigated the meaning of the symbol. And again, it says that if you want the meaning, you need to think twice before you do something with the symbol.
And it leads to misinterpretation sometimes, I think, too, because I can think back many situations. I get a emoji and I'm not even sure if that's the meaning that I understand. So this would be again this difficulty of does A say what B understands, right? And so especially with emojis, although you have actually a list of what meanings do emojis have, still sometimes somebody sends an emoji and you're not sure about what the meaning is. And it's also maybe again what you mentioned, Natalia, about like not showing like or not taking the responsibility you should. And so you would instead of articulating with words, you just put that emoji to maybe even like have it open, so to speak, and not to actually say what you mean.
This actually gives me a thought that the evolution of symbolism and symbols is like, it's so fascinating. Like everything has left us. The ancient languages are no more used now in this current time, but symbols have not left. They have evolved, but they have not left us. Like from the ancient Egyptian symbols of just line and a cross or a curve, now we have so many brands and other organizations using graphic symbols. So we are all surrounded with symbols. They're not going to leave us. They have not left us, and then they're not going to leave us soon, I guess.
There is no need to be too much or obsessively attentive to symbols. However, we need to remember that symbol is part of the culture. Symbol is a part of the mentality, and symbol is a part of art, and symbol is a part of an offensive culture. And all the time when we're faced with something that deprives us of responsibility, we need to take into account that somebody can also use it to deprive of their responsibility and not to be responsible for what they do as well. So actually, it's very difficult. This topic is very difficult to deal with just in quite a limited time. But anyway, it would be great if we could be able to reconsider our attitude to symbols and not just ignore it, because again, ignorance doesn't mean that you're not responsible if something goes wrong.
So, Natalia, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We're very blessed to have you for
Yes.
the huge insight.
Yeah.
And
so it was very insightful.
Okay, ladies, thank you very much. And I want to say how grateful I am for this opportunity to speak about the symbols, because the time is expiring. Anytime you need me, I'm at your disposal. Feel free to ask should you have any questions. Hope to see you soon.
So yeah, we're grateful that we had Natalia as a first guest today. And if you have any further questions on the topic, you should most definitely put it in the comment section, and we'll be forwarding them to Natalia and give you some answers on that.
If you like what you saw, just click the subscribe button if you have not already subscribed to our channel. And do not forget to click the little bell icon so that you're notified the next time we upload a new video. Thank you so much.
And don't forget to heart our videos.
That's so cute.
Have a good time, everyone. See you next time.
Next time.
Namaste.
Namaste.